Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's such a pleasure today to be here with Tony Becerra, who is running for Santa Barbara City Council in District 3, the West Side. And he's got a lot of nicknames, the mayor of the West Side, the king of the West Side. We're going to learn everything about Tony today and why he's running and what he's all about. Welcome to the show, Tony. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. Thanks for the invitation, the opportunity to talk about the issues on the West Side and about myself and my history, and just getting letting people get to know who I am and why I'm doing the things I'm doing.
Yeah, this is great. It's been kind of a story since you emerged as a candidate because a lot of people knew who you were. You have your dojo there on the west side, and you've trained generations of people, and you're kind of a household name out there. And so you decided to run. I guess it's a bit of the story of a small business owner who over time becomes increasingly frustrated with how government is responding to the community and decided to just throw your hat in there and get involved. So talk to me, Tony. This is a big job to take on. Why are you running?
Well, first of all, it's funny because I talked to another reporter, Jerry Robertson. He said, I was kind of a throwback back when city council used to be run by businessmen or ex-businessmen, retired gentlemen. And so, it's I never ever thought I'd be running for office, but the truth of the matter is it was kind of like by force. I mean, a lot of things have happened over the last couple of years, being kicked out of my house, and having to move and then trying to work my way back and trying to find, a suitable place to live here in Santa Barbara, you know, and then, even some nights stayed in my business because, it was just easier to stay here than, being commuting back and forth and stuff. So, it's been tough, but in the process, I have, like you said, generations of families have come through here. My lobby, which is behind me, is it's kind of like a gathering place for the locals to sit. They sit there for an hour, at a time, and they just tell me about the issues that are going on. And one of the biggest ones was the crosswalks, the conditions of the street, the bad lighting and not feeling safe at night, and things, when you're a businessman, you're, I'm father first, I have my wife and kids that that obviously I prioritize. And then, after that, then it's business, and, when you're doing business and you're just trying to, get things done day by day, we live paycheck to paycheck, just like most people in Santa Barbara do. You don't really get a chance to smell the roses. So, not really looking around, just kind of seeing things going, oh man, this place has really gone downhill. It's been over 20 years that they've done major renovations in the area. And then after about a year, they stopped maintaining it. So looking at what was around us and how, the recent repairs, and they added water pipes to replaced the water pipes on San Andres Street. And they just left it worse, potholes and, just uneven elevation. But I think going back to what the parents were saying is the worst part is the kids don't feel safe. The parents don't feel safe crossing the road. San Andres sometimes, it could be 45 miles an hour that these people are racing up and down the block, and we have one stop sign, one stoplight. That's it. And if that doesn't slow them down, then it's another freeway, So I think I started talking to people and just realized that things weren't going to get done. I'd had conversations with the incumbent, before about little things, garbage cans and benches and even dog bags, because I walk my dogs through the neighborhood almost every single day, and there's only one place you can find dog bags on the west side, and it's just like kind of ridiculous. Meanwhile, people are on next door apps talking about how people don't pick up after themselves, so it's just kind of just the basic stuff. So I think realizing that things weren't going to get done unless we had good leadership, and that's when people started getting in my ear like, well, maybe you should do it, sensei, maybe you should do it, and I, looking back at my background, as a wrestling coach, as a community leader, as far as running a nonprofit like the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and the president of the Ben Page Center out in Goleta. I've gathered a lot of information. I've made a lot of relationships with people with other nonprofits. I've worked with other nonprofits to help them fundraise and to get projects done. And So looking at my history, I was like, man, I guess I am kind of suited for this. I've had the experience, not only the business experience, but I also have the contacts, that I've made over the years, over the decades. I think I got into the junior chamber when I was 19. The month later, they changed it to 21 and over. So it's like I just got in under the wire, or they railroaded me into it anyhow. So, but in the process, it was a growing time when they would stick you in a project and run that project, and I don't know how to run it, and then you'd have to figure it out and talk to people and learn how to communicate and to build relationships with people in order to get things done. And that's what I've done my whole life, is being able to read people and realize, okay, we can prioritize this, because just like a small business, I don't have the money just to go, hey, we need new bags and new flooring. You have to kind of put everything in its place, and then from there you can kind of decide, a plan to get things done. And I think that's where the city is lacking a little bit, is that, they a lot of talk, and I think they do things before they really plan it out, and think of all the aspects of it. They're spending money that we don't have. And that's one thing, as a business person, I can't do that. I went through COVID, you know, during COVID, there used to be 22 karate schools or martial arts schools in Santa Barbara prior to COVID. I think right now there's only 6. So it
Mm.
shows you the how badly that affected businesses like mine. I was able to sustain, even though I wasn't getting payments in. I was able to, I had good credit, so I was able to put it on my cards. But I put myself in a world of debt as a result. But I was able to maintain, classes. I would teach classes at the park and just, get people there. 50 people at a time at Ledbetter. I'm sorry, Shoreline Park, where I grew up on the Mesa, and it was great, get these kids out there, the smiles on their face, parents crying. It's like he hasn't smiled in weeks, and just getting them a chance to run free and, and to get out there and train with other kids. And, so it's just, my life has been, I didn't realize it's been a roller coaster of preparation for this time in my life. And I'm now, at first I was apprehensive, not sure, but now I see where I need to go with this, how I need to lead, who I need to pull together to make things happen. And of course, I don't know it all, but I'm willing to reach out and get that information from the relationships I built over the years.
Yeah, that's very well said, because there's so many issues on the west side, and they don't necessarily get the attention over at City Hall. And it's historically been that way. It is true on the east side. We do have district elections, so there's obviously more awareness of these issues, but typically it's always been sort of like San Roque, the Riviera, the Mesa. These are the areas where the power has been politically. And so now we see more attention to your district, District 1, and here's somebody who's right in the middle of it and sees it all. So we have the issues that you outlined that, are prompting you to run crosswalk safety, and just the, lighting, I know we've talked about that as well. There's other issues that come up in a campaign, right? And so a lot of people have made a few issues the focal point, and now you're sort of caught in the middle of it as a candidate. So for example, rent control, right? Or rent cap or rent stabilization. And I know they're all different things, but the bottom line is there's a lot of talk about a cap on the amount you can raise rents per year. And this is an issue that's getting lots of attention because your opponent is for this. Can you talk about your perspective on a rent cap or rent stabilization in Santa Barbara?
Well, the problem is that, first of all, Santa Barbara is going to have issues all the time because everybody wants to live here. What we found out when I got kicked out of my place, I couldn't find a place to rent because people were coming in from LA because they were starting to work remotely. And they figured, if I can work anywhere in the world, I'm going to live in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
The couple of clients that I have that, their kids come here, but that's the story they tell me. They're, heck yeah, if I went to Santa Barbara for vacation, I said, I'm going to move there, so, that part of it's always going to be tough. But as far as, the cap goes, there's a couple of reasons why I'm against it. It's not that I don't want to, I don't believe that there should be fair pricing for where someone lives. Obviously I'm a renter, so of course I want fair prices, but the reality is that, when you talk about, if we want to live in a nice place, if we want to have the upgrades that are that we should be getting as tenants, then we have to be willing to understand how business works. And the way business works is, for example, our property tax. If you're a property owner, property tax is close to 2% every year that it goes up because of ballots, propositions that were on the ballots for city college or something like that. They naturally raise your normal property tax. Well, if that's almost 2%, then what happens when, like this year, especially insurance? Some people got insurance, they're doubled. Some people got their insurance tripled. I know I've talked to a couple of residents who got their insurance canceled because the city didn't trim the trees in front of their house, and the trees are in the middle of power line. And then I have one person right up the block on San Andres who said he had to pay personally and worrying about a fine where he had to pay for a tree trimmer to come trim the tree so he can get insured in the fear of getting cited for trimming a city tree. So it's like at some point, and he had called the city to have them come do it, but they said it's not on the schedule. They had to wait another 2 years before the tree trimming came to San Andres. And so those are the type of issues that are real. So when you talk about, if you have your insurance rates going up and you have your property tax going up every year, and then how about repairs for where you live? So the problem is it doesn't make sense. If you're at 2% and you have a natural 3.5%, 4% increase because of insurance or whatever it is, repairs for your property, people won't do the repairs. And if we want to live in a city like Oakland or a rundown city, where everything's a slum, that's how you do it. Because not only will the homeowners, the property owners, not do the repairs because what's the reason? The value of the property is dropping. And the other side of it is that when Santa Barbara obviously needs more housing. We need, whether it's in equity building condos or new houses, or if it's more apartment buildings for our community. The builders aren't going to come because if they can't make their bottom line make sense, then they're not going to come here. And we see that in Minneapolis, Minnesota, when they went with the 2% cap the following year, there was 80% less new building. And I know my opponent said, well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Well, we can't go by hopefully. We got to go by examples. We got to see what's the real bottom line. What's the ink say? The ink says that it's not sustainable, especially for a town like Santa Barbara with the cost so high and in a rental market that's so high.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of people are frustrated, or they don't know what the answer to this issue is, because a lot of people have left Santa Barbara because of increasing rents. And we know that Santa Barbara has always been expensive and will always be expensive. There's a thinking that it's gotten really worse, recently in the last few years. How do we keep locals here in Santa Barbara? How do we keep them from having to move out? There's a lot of people I went to high school with. Most of them, in fact, don't live here anymore, and they live in Oxnard and Lompoc, Santa Maria, Ventura, or Oregon, Arizona, or anywhere else, but anywhere that's cheaper. So if we can't sort of do something that you think makes sense for the property owners to, keep rents somewhat not out of reach, what is the solution? What do you think? What are some answers to this problem?
Well, and that's the funny thing, because we've really seen a huge increase in the last 5 or 6 years. And the one thing, the common denominator with that is what happened in 2019. They passed a rent control proposal. The governor got that passed, which is, and you see, has it decreased rent? Has it maintained rent? No, rents have gone up. I talked to a lady, or I talked to a property manager who would say to the lady he works for, and said, "Hey, how much are we going to raise the rent this year? Do we want to go $100?" She goes, "Oh, that's kind of too high. Should we go 50?" She's like, and she goes, "Okay, how about 75? Right in the middle." So that would be the amount that they would raise. And this unit they were talking about is like 10 units, and but it was something that they had worked their life for to build, and to have. And so she was okay with $75 more for the year. And then rent control comes in the very next year. He's all, "Hey, how much do you want to go up this year?" Because sometimes she wouldn't go up, he said. And then she goes, "Well, what does the law say?" And the law says, "Oh, well, right now it's like 9.8%, And she goes, "Okay, all right, well, let's just do that because that's what the governor said. That's what rent control is." So now everybody got this huge increase. And I tell you, as a renter, when I rented I was on Figueroa Street for 12 years. Um, when I started, it was back in the day, right? When I first opened up the building in 1996, I was paid $800 for a 2 bedroom, 1 bath, right? It
Mhm.
was a duplex. And when I moved out 12 years later, I was paying $1,200,
Mhm.
I mean, and then the next house I was in for, for a little over 10 years. And I started out for a 3 bedroom, 2 bath at 2,300. And when I moved out, I was paying 2,800.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like these huge rates because most people, mom and pops, don't gouge. What they're trying to do is just make ends meet and maybe put away a little bit more for the mortgage to get the property paid off as soon as they can. And some of them have already paid them off and they're just kind of living off the residual income that comes in as a result. So what happened is with this rent control, it just pushed everybody up. Everybody's trying to get to market value, especially apartment buildings. Their value is not based on their location like a house would be. It's based on how much is the property producing. It's a business. So I think that kind of shot everybody in the foot. Not, I understand the intent, but the result is not what the intent was. As far as what should we do, I think we should collaborate more with the city, with the county, possibly. I have a friend, like I said before, he makes $25,000 a year, but he owns a condo behind Costco. How did he get in? Well, there was an opportunity. They built these condos back there, and they had low income, middle income, and then regular tiered income condos, and people moved in there. And after I think 25 or 30 years, he can put it on the market for market value. But if he moves out prior to that, he has to sell it at what he got it for. So I think that, the county owns tons of property. I think they own more property than anybody in town, right? And so, using county resources, looking at grants, looking at our congressmen to help, supply some type of funding to get infrastructure built, in Santa Barbara to create housing. And if we could do something, everybody talks about apartment buildings. I'm thinking about more opportunity to own something because, equity is where wealth is built. It's not built on rental. That's throwing stuff away. So, and everybody should have an opportunity to at one point own something. And if we get banks to jump in this equation where they can be the carrier of the note, so that more people have an opportunity to get in because it's less down. There's programs where it's 5% down based on the price of the house. There was government programs that will give you the down payment to get into a house. So there's stuff out there. The problem is in Santa Barbara, there's nothing available. So I think. One of the other issues too is corporate comes in and buys homes, and I have real estate friends who said corporate comes in and buys the houses cash. That also, that means that house is now going to be a rental property forever, right? And so we got to make sure that there's opportunities for locals to buy homes in town or to create. I know there's a whole can of worms on that one, but just giving more opportunities for locals to live. Also, maybe prioritizing our first responders and maybe teachers in the area where they can build housing specifically for those people. Because I know I was talking to firefighters recently, and they said that there was one company that only 2 members out of the entire station live locally. So that means if there was a mudslide or like a fire, or like if Carpinteria got shut off and Gaviota got shut off, there's only the firefighters at the station that are available because the other ones live out of town, like you say, and your friends do. So the idea is that we need to think first about, what's, the role of government. The role of government is to, number one is to protect its citizens. So we need to think about that, and then of course the educational side, making sure that our teachers have an opportunity to live locally too, because you want to live by your teachers. You want to live by your, my friends growing up. I had 3 or 4 officers who were buddies, firefighter. The lady up the block, Olga Herrera, she was like my hero. She would bring the fire truck on our block. We're like, yeah, and so having those relationships with neighbors and friends and seeing them grow up and into these, heroes for us, that's a big deal. So, trying to find a solution for housing in Santa Barbara, it's not just today's issue. It's been the issue for the last, 50 years, so, my parents were, fortunate enough, worked hard enough to get a house on the Mesa back in 1967, the year I was born, and for $14,000. It's just amazing. You can't do that now. You can't get into a house, with $100 a month, for a mortgage. And so, we're never going to see those days again, but there should be opportunities for people that work hard, that save their money to get into homes. And I'm willing to work with people and to figure things out to try to create something that we get more opportunities like my friend and getting into a condo at low income, getting into a condo or a house at middle income. And, of course, the high end, they're doing okay, but we just need to make more opportunities for people like you and me.
Yeah. And you touched on it a second ago. Let's just spend real quick on it because I want to move on to more issues. But I think when people hear, oh, for or not against a rent cap, they think, and business owner, they think, oh, rich guy, right? And you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but what is your housing situation? You've rented, you've moved around, you're back on the West Side, but you've lived in other places. Can you just walk us through your struggle as somebody who has grown up in this community and owns a business? But still has trouble, with the housing situation. Can you just explain what that's been like for you?
Well, it's funny because one of my students, he comes in the morning, he has a very successful IT company, right? And shoot, you can't get more successful than that. It's a multi-million dollar company. He hires. I mean, he has 300-400 employees. But the thing is that he still rents. Why is he renting? And because he says it's just hard to get into the market. It's hard to put that money aside because we're, even as a business owner, I've said this before, most small business owners, there's three levels. You're either breaking even, you're losing money, or you're making money, right? And that's how it's in thirds, and I've been in all three categories. I had great years when I was young because I used to work 60 hours a week, and just killing my body, myself, and I did very well. And, now I want to spend time with my family and be at my girls, my daughter played volleyball last night. I was there at the game, cheering her on. And, so the thing is, we prioritize as we get older, but we still want the opportunity to live in Santa Barbara, and so it's an ongoing thing. I think I as renting, I was telling you about the 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Of course, as my family grew, we needed to get a 2 bedroom, and a 3 bedroom, and then a 4 bedroom. So you move around because you're trying to hopefully move yourself up, like George Jefferson used to say, moving on up, so, you want to move your family up because you don't want to stay down, so, you want to enjoy some of the finer things in life, and hopefully you can move into a bigger house, with more amenities. And that's what we've done over the years. But unfortunately, when I thought I had an opportunity to buy, that COVID kicks in. And so all my savings and put myself in serious debt during that time. So I wouldn't lose the business that I've had for, over 30 years. Yeah, and even the fact that I moved from State Street, my business was on State Street for the first 15 years. I moved here. I wasn't, I owned it for 5 years on State Street, but moving to the West Side was a huge challenge because when I was on State Street, I had over 150 members at that time when I moved this dojo, and when I reopened here 4 months later, I was down to 25 members, and those people weren't coming to the West Side because at the time it was, it was horrible. The matter of fact, that within the first 2 months, it was a shooting across the street. And so the thing is that we, it's a process. Now I live on the West Side. I live right down the block from where I work. I do my morning workouts here. It's like what I call it me time. Me time is important because all day all I do is work with kids and try to build their confidence and their strength. I work with adults and helping them to de-stress and to really see themselves from a different light. And so I'm always putting all my energy out to them, and I just need to have that morning time where I can have my me time and just work out, sweat, and then just go, okay, I'm ready for the day. So I'm just glad to be back in this area. And again, where I live now is, I'm still looking for a better place. I just needed to get into Santa Barbara because if you don't, I have tons of friends, like you said, that have moved away and they can't get back. I have a friend that lives in Vegas right now. He's been trying to get back for the last 10 years and he just can't, figure it out. So, getting back, I think, is the first step, and then working from there would be the next.
Okay. So, real quickly, I want to ask you about the sales tax and State Street. There's a half-cent sales tax proposal on the November ballot. The city says we need it to continue to play for public safety, public services, housing, library, a number of civic things. What's your take on the half-cent sales tax proposal?
Well, I think first of all, the in business, like I said, I dug myself in the hole by trying to maintain my business, but that's because it was closed. I was almost closed for almost 2 years. So at that point, it's either shut it down, sell it, or do something, and no one's going to buy because there was no business. So, but I had to figure out a way, it's something that I could still, get myself in debt, but figure it out to dig my way out of it. With the city, they don't do that. They overspend, they underestimate. There's no accountability for as far as how their spending goes. There's no one really breaking it down to say, okay, that went way over budget. So the problem is it's fiscal responsibility with our local government, and you can't run a business that way. I mean, I had to survive to keep my business, my livelihood, but they're responsible for our tax dollars, and if they misuse them, if they overspend, that's not our fault as citizens. Especially on the west side, we have the lowest income area right in this I would say within this mile of where my business is. They're struggling as it is. I have people pulling their kids out because they can't afford the monthly here. I have kids that I've had to let slide 2 and 3 months with no membership fees, and I don't ever share that with anybody, but I just don't charge them because I want the kids to still be involved. And I said, you know what, we'll figure it out. It's in God's hands, and we're going to, he'll take care of everything, and I've always, lived by that rule. So, I just try to do what I can. But the thing is that they have to be responsible for the money they get, and they promise, oh, we're going to build this and do this and this new program for the library and this for the police and for the fire. But there's no guarantee. Nothing's earmarked. The extra money they raise is going to go to the general fund, and then they can misspend that as well. So I'm saying no on the tax because it hurts the people that are most vulnerable. That's the low income people on the west side that are walking to the store because they don't have gas for their car to be spending. So they'll walk up here with the little carts. I'm fighting for the people that are barely making it through paycheck to paycheck, and adding another half a cent tax isn't the answer. I think looking at the priorities for the city. I mean, obviously they're not doing any street work or sidewalk work or any infrastructure work on the west side. So it's not like, hey, we're overspending over here. It's wherever they're putting it. So we need to prioritize. The west side, I don't know if you know this, we don't have a public library. We don't have a place where kids can go to gather to work on their education. Why not? We're just as important as the east side. We're just as important as downtown. So that's one of my go-to projects is to get, if it's not a permanent facility, to get that library van on the west side 3-4 days a week and have a place for them to park so people know, hey, that's a resource for us. Those are simple things that can be taken care of, and unfortunately our incumbent just doesn't see and prioritize what's important, and the important is, what can we do for the community now? How can we gather together as a community to make us stronger? And it's not going to happen one at a time. It's going to happen as gathered as one voice, being the squeaky wheel. Like I've said before, we have to be the squeaky wheel. Otherwise, we're not going to get the grease. And the grease is, getting money spent and contributed into this area. But it's going to take a voice or a leadership. It's not going to take sitting back. It's going to take, combining with other organizations to help out in the process. Because I know the city's strapped, but I know there's, Santa Barbara has tons of nonprofits that I've worked with before. They have tons of philanthropists in Santa Barbara that are willing to give. They just don't know where to give sometimes. If you, the Ben Page Center that I been president of since 2000. To 2020, it's a complete renovation. Why? Because things weren't done. I got them done. And then now when we ask for money for new things, the new projects are just, the people are willing to give it because they know things will get done. They know the money will be set aside for something else or paid, used for another project. We use it for what we asked for it. And the results are, and I don't know if you've been out there lately, it's beautiful. We just did the paving in front. We had more handicap spots on the front and the side of the building. And now we have a new project in the back of the Ben Page Center, which will be a multi-use basketball courts with pickleball courts, so something that the community can use, not just the Page members, but community can use to really get out there. So
Yeah, I coached my son there. We got a few basketball trophies pre-pandemic. He's 19 now, so I had to play back before the renovation, I guess. So
yeah. Well, you got to go take a look. 2 years ago when my daughter was in 8th grade, they had an undefeated championship season there. So
yeah, that's great. I did it both ways. We went undefeated one year and lost in the championship, and that's coaching right there. That was all me. Then we had another season where we just got better and better and better, and then we ran the table and won the championship, and that
Awesome.
was more rewarding than the
Oh
end of
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
it.
When you come from as an athlete, one thing is winning, but when you work hard and you can see the changes and you can measure them by wins and losses, it's great and it's so rewarding. Those kids will never forget that time. So thank you for being a part of that because you gave those kids some I always call it some liquid fuel for later on in their lives. Because as they go, yeah, oh no, I've done that, I can do it now. So that's the idea is with sports and with working with youth is that you show them a way and then they use that. It's a valuable lesson they use throughout their life.
Yeah, that's great. And I never had those teams where you had the number one, I always had a team of guys in the middle, and
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
it's often a better team, because there
Yeah.
are no superstars on that team. Hey, I want to talk to you and karate and your story because it's amazing. But real quick, downtown traffic, State Street. Would you like to open up a few blocks back to cars, electric bikes? You just want to spend a couple minutes on your views on State Street and what the plan would be if you're elected to council, what you would want to do?
Well, I definitely want to make it more accessible. I don't know what the answer is right now, but I think I got a call just a couple of days ago from a very popular restaurant that's down on the 500 block, which that's the golden block, right?
Yeah.
That's where I worked. I worked there for 15 years on State Street, but as a bouncer, as a bartender, and just so that 500 block is the golden block. But he recently told me just a couple of days ago, he said that business is down 40%, 40%. So and he contributes that to the bicyclists that are just racing down the street and making it difficult. They as they ride by, they're yelling and screaming at people. He's had people throw stuff on plates. Not necessarily him. But I had other people told me that people ride by and they throw stuff onto people's food as they're sitting there and eating.
Oh,
So and my daughter, she's last summer she was still an electric bike rider, so she was down there and she said that the kids were they were videoing each other bumping into people on State Street. It was kind of like a funny thing for them, and she
like
was
a
like,
TikTok thing or something? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So he's not that the business owner I talked to. He's not really 100% about opening it up to cars, but I did mention, how about a bus or a trolley or and he totally was in agreement with that. He realized that obviously people need to have some access. Whether it's better parking on the side streets, so you don't always have to go to the parking lot. I don't necessarily. Like if you go to downtown Ventura, in front of their city hall and stuff, where they're angled parking, like they kind of tried to do out in Goleta. I'm not really in favor of that, but at least have, we have good parking structures. They're just kind of far away, but if we make more parking available, maybe a one-way lane, but I'm definitely, whether we open the street or not, I think that, having accessibility or having a combination of things is important. Getting taxis down to Lower State Street at 1:30 at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, I think is really crucial just for drunken drivers, so we don't have more, because what happens if they're not accessible, people just will jump in their car, so I think that's an important, if you're going to let people in, maybe start with that,
Huh.
because that helps out the entire community, and also the bars too, because their liabilities, is involved too. So I think I definitely, as a kid, I used to ride my bike up and down State Street, and I used to hang out and we used to laugh and see who was there. So, I know that all the guys that I grew up, the people that I talked to, and I ask this question all the time. Hey, when was the last time you went down State Street? They're like, oh, dude, I haven't been down there for a long time. I go, why? They're like, oh, it's just crazy. You can't, worried about getting run over. It's dirty, you got to worry about transients coming and yelling at you, So I think there has to be something done, better patrolling. That means put some money into more for the police to make sure that they can do their job. Making sure the city's doing their job is keeping things clean. Because if you drive up from the beach, from the wharf, and you go under the freeway and you come up to the 400 block of State Street, it's horrible. It looks like you're going into Little Tijuana, or some third world country. And it's like, why is that? This is Santa Barbara, California. This is we have two of the 5 richest communities in the state, and yet it looks like it's run down. We need to focus on making that the crown jewel of the South Coast, and really cleaning it up and making it nice, and that'll draw more business in, because they'll look at it as a place that our visitors want to go. Right now, you go up state and you turn right or left. It's like you just took them off the main drag. So I think there's something that we can do that, having bikers there. I mean, look, we on the new farmers market, what are we doing? We're shutting down the main vein from west side to east side of Santa Barbara, right? Aside from the freeway, Carrillo Street. They're shutting it down, but it's a great event. People are out there, they're shopping. I think that's great. State Street's already closed. They could have used State Street, but they shut off a main street, right? Well, then why not open up a main street and then shut it down when we need it to be shut down? Maybe every evening, during Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, shut it down so it's a nice promenade. People go there. They know that's where they're going to gather. And then the rest of the time, when business is happening, when people are at work, let people do their business. So I think it's going to be a combination of talking to, the community. I know some people say, oh, it's 100% this way. It's not. My daughters, both 2 years apart, they had a school project to walk down State Street and talk to the businesses and ask them how they felt about State Street being closed. And in both cases, one was like 52%, one was like 53%, where the businesses are split right down the middle. Restaurants want it open, restaurants and bar want it open. Retail wants it closed, and businesses, retail businesses want it open. And you get a combination. There's some in there that are mixed, but I think it's just figuring out what's best. But we can do it without spending a lot of money. We can open it up, even for one-way traffic. I would say going up, and then in the evening shut it down so the promenades can have their success. So it's going to be it's tricky, but we just need to start moving forward and not just going with what's not working now.
Yeah, great. There's a lot of nuance I hear to your conversation, and I think for a lot of people in the real world, that's how they think. It's not one or the other. They want to figure out a way it makes it work. And I like the idea of staggered times, like it's open these times, it's closed these times. That way everybody gets to enjoy it a little bit, depending on the day of the week. The electric bike thing is real. I mean, they own State Street, for sure. I'm not sure if that was the original intention, but I got about 15 minutes more, Tony. I want to talk to you about karate and wrestling, and you have your dojo, and you even trained your political opponent, and a lot of people have been trained under you. How did you get into karate and wrestling and teaching? Can you just sort of walk me through how that started for you?
Well, I tell you what, I had a cousin he was mini Bruce Lee. He was the Mexican Bruce Lee. This guy was like ripped, and he would do like, and I was about maybe 7 or 8. And he had a little 8mm camera, and he would set up everybody in the neighborhood in uniforms, and he would do these crazy fight scenes, like the old Kung Fu theater type stuff, and we would twirl the nunchucks, right? They're called nunchaku, but back then nunchucks. We would just twirl these things and try to get really good at them, and so I grew up just a really avid fan of Kung Fu, the series, and Bruce Lee and everything that was going on. And every year the phone book would come out. Remember the phone books, right? I'd find martial arts, and I'd go down and Mom, can we join this? And she would look at me and she's like, ¿Y de dónde vamos a agarrar el dinero de eso? So it's like, where are you going to get the money? Where are you going to get the money? You're the youngest at 12. We're not going to spend something on you when we're trying to put food on our plates,
Sure.
So every year though, I did it. And every year I asked the question. I used to ride my bike around to all the dojo, Ford's Martial Arts on Haley Street, which is no longer there. Jang's on Delavina, which is no longer there. Chris Weedman's, which is no longer there. But I used to go to all these places, and ride around and go, man, I wish I could do it. And they would invite me in, but I said no. My mom said no. And so as a result, but I always had I was what do you call it, enthusiast. So I was practicing kicks, punches, and I got into wrestling. Luckily, my brothers were wrestlers. So my brother Dan he was an alternate in the '84 Olympics for wrestling and Greco-Roman wrestling. That's all upper body throws, And so I had an opportunity to train with him, and he ended up my junior senior year. He was the assistant coach at Santa Barbara High where I wrestled, and I went from my sophomore year was my first year wrestling. My second year wrestling, I went from nobody, a third placer in league, to ranked 4th in the state, So it was like an incredible, increase of ability just by having my brother there and helping out, So that's where the wrestling came in. I ended up wrestling in college at Humboldt State University. I was a varsity letter winner there, and I was my freshman year. I was the only freshman to qualify to place in the NCAA Western Regionals that year. And so I was, it was something that I really enjoyed. And then as a result, though, you know, having elderly parents at the time, because being, like I said, there's a huge gap. I think my parents were in their mid 40s when they had me. So by the time I'm 20 years old, they're in their, you know, late 60s, and you know, they're having issues. So I had to come home, and that's when I started working to, you know, to, you know, pay the mortgage at my mom's house, to be able to sustain, you know, have food there. And I worked two jobs, but I did join a karate school when I was 18. I said, I'm going to do that first, you know. So I joined the karate school that I own now. I was able to train. After a year, I was national champ, in my division, green belt division. And then I just, from that point on, I just, you know, didn't stop. It was something that I enjoyed. I was good at it, you know, kind of like this race. I always went into every fight thinking that I was going to lose. I always went in with that fear, that, you know, that gut wrenching feeling that this guy's going to beat me. He's bigger than me. I mean, I'm only 5'8", you know. I should show you the picture. I used to train with the Iceman Chuck Liddell, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was my workout partner, and you know, seven-time world champion, you know, later on in life. But you know, I Chuck Liddell and, you know, another guy. These guys are like 6'3", and you know, these are my training partners every day. And every day I said, I don't know how I do it, you know. And I see pictures and I go, I don't know what made me, you know, how crazy I was to get out there and fight with these guys every day, you know. But
Were
you
you
know,
able to take Lydell down? Were you able
well, I tell you what, I should show you. I have a little trophy up there up on my. It's like I have all these national championships. I have, you know, Greece championships. You know, a finalist in South American championships. I have all these trophies, but this little trophy up on top is my prized possession. And people say why, and I said, well, Chuck Liddell has one just like it, except his says second place. You know, so you know, so that's my bragging rights. But you know, he's a, you know, he's a good friend of mine. He's, you know, he's actually a supporter of mine too.
Oh,
He's given me his endorsement, you know. So, you know, so the thing is that
you need to get that guy on video if he's
no,
endorsed you.
we're planning on doing that soon. So the thing is that, you know, growing up, it was, you know, always these challenges, but I've always been, you know, rised up to it. And, you know, I went to Greece in 1993, competed for my system, but the U.S. national team was there. And I didn't know anything about them. So I'm like, okay. So we went, and I won the championship in the heavyweight division, you know. And so the coach walks up and says, hey, who do you train with, and where are you from? And so he appointed me to the team. And then I got to represent the U.S., you know. And then I got to represent the U.S. from 93 to 97, you know, on different teams, you know. So it was kind of an honor for me to be put there, because I'm not the type of person that would go out and do it. The reason I didn't get into UFC and to mixed martial arts is because, you know, I don't mind the fighting part. I don't mind getting out and fight. I'm ready for any type of fight, you know, whether it's, you know, like what we're doing now, you know, fighting for the West Side, or it's in the ring trying to, you know, go up against somebody. I'm ready for a fight anytime. What I'm not good at is I'm not good at this. I'm not good at, you know, promoting myself. I'm not good at, you know, and saying, look at me, you know.
Yeah.
I've always been, you know, really, you know, behind the scene type of guy. Although, you know, I like to talk to people and, you know, and hear their stories and stuff. But, you know, my whole purpose is, you know, to help improve other people's lives. You know, like you said, Oscar trained with me. His mom brought him to me when he was younger, and you know, he was having some issues at school, and so they were asking me to kind of help him with his confidence, you know, and I did, you know. And most of these kids, that's what it's about. They don't bring me their kids to become great fighters. They bring me their kids because they want more discipline. They want more self-esteem, so they believe in themselves, you know, and they want, you know, that confidence that only comes by you seeing improvement in yourself. And that's what I do, you know. That's been my lifelong, you know. You know, it's funny. We were kids. We would play, and we'd like play like, oh no, there's a crash, and I would run up. Okay, I'm the medic. I'm the medic, and I would go, and you know, my brother's like, why are you always the medic? I go, I don't know. It's just what I like to do, you know. So it's always been in my nature to be a helper, you know, to try to help people get, you know, move forward. And so I take that into this race, you know, and I'm just, but, you know, but I've taken into my life, you know, as far as, you know, sports, you know, karate, you know, I just love to do the nonprofit that I run here too. Although it's been, you know, since COVID, it's been difficult to find teachers, but, you know, I normally have a dance school here. You know, I have a ballet, you know, we opened up ballet, I think in 2011. We had a ballet program here. That's, you know, a very successful program. They moved out here eventually, but I continue to have a ballet program here. Flamenco dancing has been done here for years and years and years. Kathy Koda, who, you know, recently passed away. She, you know, she's one of the, you know, her dad was in the first fiestas, you know, over 100 years ago or 100 years ago. And she had her program here with the little kids and stuff. And so we've always been, you know, an arts community, you know, like a community center. Matter of fact, when I bought the building, the owner of the building was going to sell it to somebody else, and he gave me a discount, and he gave me he helped carry the paper because he thought, you know what, I like your ideas, and the ideas is like to allow underserved people an opportunity to experience the arts, and that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. What has competing, discipline, training? You're one of 12 kids in your family. I get the sense, very strong sense, you're gritty, you're tough, you're a survivor. Like you said, you're not made for show. You're made for go. You just want to do. What has karate? Because we all don't have that kind of a intense, a focus on it throughout life. This is your life. What has being a teacher, a trainer, a sensei, what has that taught you about life and how you approach it?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is that we all have issues. We all have our problems. Right now I have a couple of clients that are dealing with autism, and I bring a half hour into their day of that their eyes light up. The parents, are so excited to see them doing stuff physically because we work right side, left side, which helps their, dexterity, So, someone with autism who maybe won't have the same opportunities you and I would have, to parents that are just trying to de-stress, trying to find the button that makes them successful. And everybody's different. Some people are audio learners, some people are visual learners, some people have to read it to understand it, So learning how to read the situation has really been a life lesson for me, that I'm able to, even my relationship with my wife is better, we've been together for 28 years, So it's like, having that relationship, having that ability to communicate is so important, and I think, the kids that I have here, I put them through, it's not just the training, but the highest level is leadership training. We want them to become leaders. We don't want them to be the followers. We want them to be the generation that goes out there and has strength, has confidence in themselves through the stuff that they've done, it's not because I'm telling them they're good. They can see where they're at, and anywhere they end up is going to be higher than where they started. So that in itself is just an amazing tool to have in your box, to be able to show people how they can be successful, and I think that's really the number one lesson that I have is that, if you work hard and if you're consistent, and if you have the right attitude, and everything here is done on a positive, it's like, no, we don't say no. We're like, yeah, oh yeah. I'm very, you should watch one of my classes. When I'm done, I'm dripping in sweat because I'm so animated with these guys because I need to have their attention and then we go, so.
Yeah. You're we're going to wrap up here in a second. I'm going to give you sort of the last word here, but you're going up against a big challenge. You got the Democratic Party, which was walking for your opponent. And there's a lot of effort to keep him on the council. And but you recently got the firefighters endorsement, which is a big deal because you took it from the incumbent. He had it before, and that just really doesn't happen. What did that endorsement mean to you to be supported by the firefighters?
Well, I think that it was actually a shock. When I left that meeting, I was actually told that I wasn't going to get it. I thought they said, we like everything you said, we understand because they had never looked at it from my perspective, from a business point of view. How do we find the money? What do we cut? Where do we go from here? What's promised to you and what's reality? I had actually looked into their history, and finding out that every time they were in a negotiation year, that year the city happened to be on a negative in their budget, So I'm like, hey, is that by chance or is that by design? So I kind of, I told them, that nothing is, guaranteed because it's not earmarked for them. So I think when they heard my point of view, when I got the call, I was so surprised, and they're like, "Yeah, Tony, we fought about it a little bit, and we came to the realization that you're the guy that's going to fight for us." And again, it always comes back to fighting. Whether it's with these or with this, I'm going to fight for them and for all my first responders. And I have a couple of officers that are giving me their endorsement. And then they're coming out this week. I have a lot of important people in town. That are key figures in Santa Barbara that are going to be endorsing me. Because they believe in where I'm going with this, and my vision is important, and that's the thing about being an entrepreneur. You have a vision, and then you have the tools to put everything in motion to get to that point to make it a reality. And that's one advantage I have over my opponent is that he lives with the mom. and there's nothing against that. I live with my mom too, but the thing is that at some point you have to, create your own life, your own opportunities, and I don't even think his mom's in agreement with some of his policies, because she's a property owner, right? So the thing is that we just got to see, do you want more of the same, which is nothing getting done, or do you want someone that's going to fight for your community and get things on the books and some changes made that are substantial? The crosswalks will probably be number one, so they can get these kids to school and home on a safe manner. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We got 1 minute left, Tony. It's been a great conversation. I think we've gone over a lot of stuff. Any final words, anything you want to say before we sign off here about you or your candidacy?
Well, like I said, it's been a really interesting ride. Running for office was, like I said, never grew up thinking I was going to be a politician at all. But the thing is I know how to get things done, and so I have a bullet point list of things we need to do. Again, being able to work on public safety, number one, making sure that people feel safe, when they're walking around downtown, or even on the west side. Having the infrastructure money for the west side. We're spending $12 million on the underpass of the freeway. We're spending $8 million earmarked for Milpa Street for a mile worth of business district for sidewalks and street. But yet, in front of Foodland, probably the busiest sidewalk on the west side, the bricks were bad. A lady fell, hurt her knee. And what did they do? They replaced it with black asphalt on a red brick sidewalk. It's like, that's the type of care we're getting. My job would be to fight that. That never happens again. We're going to get that fixed properly, upkeep the what we do have, and just get some new things put in, new infrastructure to make this a good living environment for everybody on the west side.
Yeah.
We need to have a voice. We need to be the squeaky wheel. And I'm the person to bring everybody together. Nos unimos juntos, and we'll make a change,
Okay, Tony Becerra, thanks a lot for your time, and appreciate you talking to me way back in whatever it was, July, August, when you were first like, okay, I guess I'll run, and I appreciate, all your time, giving me to share with people your thoughts on this campaign. So thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.